I'm gonna fertilize you with this dick.
Face to face in this hour, perhaps hear a little bit from them later in the hour. But tell us about what has happened thus far since you've been on the ground.
Well, so far, all we've seen is this very brief vision of President Trump getting off the plane. There was some pomp and circumstance. It was a red carpet, exactly what you would imagine President Trump would want arriving in China. He was greeted by the vice president of China, which shows how important this trip is.
By the way, when the leader of DPRK went, Xi Jinping greeted him personally. They did bring out like a lot of flags, a lot of soldiers, a little bit more than they usually bring. But it is an important kind of like symbolic meeting. Hello, President Trump. We have prepared a special meal for Chinese McDonald's. They fed me Chinese McDonald's. We need to catch up. Chinese people. How can McDonald's be better in China? It is American. Why is it better in China? It has to be that special type of salt that the Asians put in their food. What was it called? MLB, MST, MSNBC. I don't remember. The MVP team, okay. He introduced me to the whole team. They shook my hands. Very strong handshake. Especially for a Chinese man, okay? That is a stereotype. They have very strong handshakes. It's from all the cigarette smoking. They always use their hands, smoking cigarettes. Why did everything smell like cigarettes? Imagine he's like, why does it smell like cigarettes everywhere? They enter the great people's hall and she's chain smoking. He's like, yo, MS-13 in the food. They have MSG. We have MSNBC. That is why we're failing. More MSG, less MSNBC. That is what I have always been saying.
One thing I am noticing, and I wonder if you have some insights into this, is that it does not appear to be maybe many Western press in close proximity to the.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because go fuck yourself, that's why. You're in China now, motherfucker. We are the ones that get the front shots. Like, this is a security risk, okay? I doubt that they let fucking CCTV to record in Trump's face when somebody's coming to the White House, but no.
It is a handful of people, but it is a small footprint.
Wait, they got the absolute unit back here. The guy that tweets for Trump, dude. Oh my God. They're like, look, President Xi, we got an Asian on the team. Okay. Do you have a white guy on your team? No, you don't. We have an Asian guy, and they tell us that we're racist. We're not. You're racist. Why do you not have white people on your team? We got one Asian guy. We even got a couple of Jews. Okay. Where are your Jews? Xi Jinping confirmed anti-Semitic. No Jewish people on his team. Are you even circumcised, Xi? Oh my God, look how pretty they are. They are not fat like our Americans. I keep telling them I wanted a military parade, but all our soldiers are very fat. That's why Hexeth is destroying DEI in the military. Look at it here. They're all Chinese. No diversity, only Chinese. That's because they don't have DEI. They even discriminate them by height. We can't do that in the States. They're gonna tell us, no, you gotta put the manlet next to the Chad. In China, they're all Chads in China. Call China woke. It's not woke. Look at them. No white people, no black people, no Jews. All just Chinese men, equal height.
Americans, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, we should all be rooting for President Trump. We want President Trump to succeed. We don't want him to give away the shop. We don't want him to make unnecessary compromises on Taiwan.
Wow. The one thing Democrats, Republicans, and Independents should agree on is China should go fuck itself, and we should imperialize it and dictate everything there.
It's great. We're going to get purchases of American soybeans and planes, but in exchange, we have to very aggressively support American interests.
The kids like what?
Yeah, look at this. Can you hear this? Can you pure imperialist, bloodthirsty fervor? Pure.
You were just saying.
We're just going to listen in for just a second here. I mean, this is a pretty extraordinary image of young children.
Yeah, I don't think it's sincere. I think these kids were put up to it.
Well,
really?
Some
You think?
Something tells me that they were
I
strongly
thought this was
encouraged.
all organic. I thought everyone just happened to be here at the same time.
We'll listen in for just a moment and watch this moment.
Yeah, just like the soldiers and just like everyone else during a state visit, create aesthetic symbols that are supposed to tell you that you are welcome. Something's telling me that all of this on this ceremony is scripted because it is a ceremony. Something tells me that the turkey you are going to pardon did not consent to this. Well, yes, you're doing ceremonies. It's scripted. But you see, they're doing ceremonies Asianly and communistically, right? And authoritarianly. When we do ceremonies, we do them in a civilized, natural, capitalist, organic, non-authoritarian way. I hate it when somebody does the same thing I do, but Asianly. Damn it.
Look, their net import of oil is down 20%. This is not an economy that is in a strong position. They've been facing a real estate crisis for 5 years. They need to export all of these.
Literally, just speaking from the top of her head. None of that is true, by the way. None of that. They have become a consumption economy. They do not need to export as much as they needed to export 10 years ago. They do not have a potential labor pool problem because the generational switch is a change, demographic switch that is going to come as a consequence of the one-child policy will be upkept by automation. The current max employment in China is due to it being a country on a socialist path, ensuring borderline total employability of absolutely everyone. We'll continue to do so by eliminating jobs in the future that can be automated, not as a way to rid people of job positions, but as a way to adapt to a decline in population from generation to generation. These people think that, being a Chinese factory worker is listening to the Chinese anthem and just pulling a lever 24/7. That's the only thing that they need to do. Well, even if that was the case, the gaps in jobs will nonetheless get automated. So all of this is complete bullshit.
These goods domestically, demand is not what it was.
That's not true. That's actually just a lie. That is actually a lie. When it comes to the real estate crisis, the PRC looks at real estate completely differently than how America or most capitalist states look at real estate. Okay? To the Americans look at, for example, apartment blocks remaining empty, and they say, "Oh my God, that's going to crash the economy." No, it's not. It's going to crash real estate companies that have market caps made by the socialist state that might go bankrupt because they built bad shit. The state isn't going to bail them out. Sure, skeletons of buildings may remain empty forever, but this is not a purely capitalist economy. It's not selling. These companies go under. Okay, I don't give a shit. Why did you build buildings there where there was no necessity? The entirety of the economic system is not directly tied into the real estate market and loan systems and private banks the way it is in the United States. So no, the real estate issue is not really an issue. It's an issue if you consider China a purely free market economy, which it is not. All of this is just, sorry that I'm going on a riff like this, but this is just lying. This is actually just fucking lying. Some of you are confused why they're doing this. This is what has always been done between states during a state visit. US still has something on China. It is the world's most powerful military to them. And they're trying to find a relatively healthy solution when it comes to Taiwan. That is the main reason why they are meeting. Number one. And number two, you can get on Trump's good side by doing very, very basic shit sometimes. And a bunch of kids with little flags and badass looking military personnel marching in front of him, making him feel very, very special. He's going to play a pretty decent role in ensuring that he doesn't go completely fucking bananas on any action that the PRC might choose to take in the coming years during his administration. Same thing that every state does. You glaze up the foreign dignitary, hoping that adjusts the conditions accordingly.
So as much as we want this war to end, look, 50% of their oil comes from the Middle East. So I think, frankly, in this moment, there might be more to be aligned on. Of course, the tech piece of this is huge. Trump brought a huge coalition of business and tech leaders, and China is desperately trying to get our AI chips. They need that capacity to continue to grow their own economy.
They really need our AI chips, but I brought a bunch of CEOs to grovel in front of the Communist Party of China so they can potentially enter what is going to be the most important and largest consumption market on the planet. We are going to Beijing for them to beg us for. It's fucking legend.
U.S. analysis that details that China is exploiting the war in Iran to maximize its advantage over the United States across.
Yeah, why did you start a war then? Of course it's going to exploit it. But the problematic the problematic party in the Iran war are the guys that started the Iran war. China is being exceptionally problematic about how it is treating this war we started. Problematic. A fucking bitch used the word problematic. About a party that is not bombing fucking school kids.
Well, President Xi, I want to thank you very much. First of all, that was an honor like few have ever seen before.
He gave me the best parade. Everybody else, when they went, it was a smaller parade. Mine was the best. They gave Obama 20 children. I had 50 children waving at me. Did you see the amount of cars?
And I think I was particularly impressed by those children. They were happy. They were beautiful.
Oh my God, he actually said it about the children. That's so fucking funny. The poor Chinese, they don't understand these people eat and fuck kids. They can't comprehend the potential problematic nature of having children near Trump.
Couldn't be better, but those children were amazing, and they represent.
Back in the United States, giving me white kids. I don't only want white kids. I might be a pedophile, but I'm not a racist.
We have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, and I guess the best in the world. We have amazing people, and they're all with me. Every single one of them. We asked the top 30 in the world. Every single one of them said yes.
Top CEOs sitting in the Hall of the People, where there's depictions everywhere of a revolution where people like them were thrown off buildings, is very, very cinematic. Okay? It is very cinematic, I have to say.
And I didn't want the second or the third in the company. I wanted only the top. And they're here today to pay respects to you and to China. And they look forward to trade and doing business, and it's going to be totally reciprocal on our behalf. So I
love how we're pushing the narrative that it is China that relies too much on exports, and then we're going to this country that's definitely not a consumer economy anymore. Consumer economy is a place that can sustain its own domestic production by selling it to its own population. America has used to be the world's greatest consumer economy because when you make a product and you manage to sell it in the United States of America, that's how you make the big money, okay? They are the nom 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 nation. Now China is slowly not only being the sell, but also nom 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 nation as well. And China is working towards that goal with great fervor because that's what allows them for maximum self-sustainability. But you're going to ask, okay, where does the relatively cheaper labor that is no longer available domestically going to come from? Two places: greater levels of automation, okay? So when you have the generational swap and when the population of China declines pretty sharply, you're gonna make up for those with automation, but you're also gonna make up for those in developing markets abroad that are not consumer markets yet, that China has already built up very good relationships with. And that is where the Belt and Road Initiative is going to play the main role, especially in Africa, okay? They are going to do what basically outsourcing to China did for China. They're going to be outsourcing mostly in Africa, but not only, which is then going to allow those domestic African economies to, if they utilize it the way the Chinese did, to eventually become a consumer society as well, right? Not just an exporter society, not just an exporter country. The bet in the far long term is, okay, then most of Africa also develops and becomes consumer societies. Where the fuck do we get the labor? That's where you either go into the pure, capitalist barbarity of fuck labor, who the fuck gives a shit, or a civilizational leap of proletarian automation, okay? Of actually creating more efficient, centrally planned socialized economy, which automation plays a very large role. The second there's no more place to outsource to, okay? Second there's no more poorer place than you who outsource to, everything fucking collapses. Everything. So we will have to an extent, either automate or basically do eco-fascism and go and proactively ensure that certain places remain underdeveloped so that they can be a cheap cheap labor pool. Okay? Okay. The PRC has been working on this pipeline for a very long time. And their goal, which we will see if it's going to be hypocritical or not, of turning eventually to socialism, only something that makes sense from an ideological perspective, but it also makes sense from the perspective of the party keeping power. Why? Because when we reach the 2050s and the 2060s, without switching to a centrally planned, heavily automated economy, and we just run on automation that's held in the hand of large capital and the market, you will reach a point of lack of efficient growth and development, and the masses will notice, and the life will start getting shittier and shittier and shittier. If there is a point that is almost textbook Marxian that potentially China will be able to grasp, I'm not going to say that they will grasp it, potentially will be able to grasp, it might actually have in front of it. Okay? It might actually have in front of it. Let's see if they do. Let's see if they do. TLDR, why am I optimistic about the Chinese socialist path? Because in the long term, returning to central planning is unironically going to be more efficient, even for quote-unquote greedy, power-hungry purposes. So even the worst type of actor coming into, which I doubt would happen, but let's imagine, even the worst type of actor coming into a position of power in Chinese leadership will want to move towards a more socialized way of managing the economy, because that's how they will make sure that prosperity goes on for longer and that they're not literally kicked out of government. It's going to be in their interest to do it. The only way this can be, of course, destroyed is if it is co-opted by large cap. Okay? If large capital manages to grow so much that it can compete with the power of the party. It's very difficult to do in China for obvious reasons. I'm eternally guilty of dialectical material, okay? Of not treating the Marxian science as a religion in which further they are not doing it the way Marx and Engels said it should be done. Therefore, I'm going to literally lose my...
Secretary of State Marco Rubio, here we are on board Air Force One. We're headed to China. These meetings are very critical. I mean, my first question.
Jesus, did they really bring this motherfucker, dude? They brought Sean Hannity to China. It is so funny. That is so fucking funny.
You know, President Trump has described President Xi to me in interviews as stoic, all business. No niceties in that sense, although there will be a state dinner.
Xi has a very interesting thing where he has like completely internalized China. So Xi is like unironically no longer like Xi. He is like an organic body, sure, but he's a leader of the PRC before he is Xi Jinping, right? A lot of leaders like get into positions of power and they use it to build up their own ego, to build up their own persona, the great leader shit, right? The shit that Donald Trump does, right? Well, Xi does unironically the opposite. It's kind of like intimidating in a way and impressive in a way as well. He completely individualizes himself. Like he's completely de-individual. Like if there's one thing that kind of exists as quote unquote censorship in China is like praising or shit talking him. Because he's like, I am the state, but I am also not the state. So like, don't personify me too much. Like Xi is like the opposite of doing the opposite of great man theory. He like melts himself into institutions. You understand what I'm trying to say, right? Like he's not building anything that's like, you know, around him. Maybe Xi Jinping thought, right? That is the only time he was like, okay, these are my perspectives, and these are the perspectives of how I intend to govern. But the rest, he's, you know, he is the state, right? But yeah, so when they say he's all business, I mean, he is China. So he's kind of that guy. Come meet with Trump, and Trump's like, man, you know, I had sex with this really hot lady or something. She's gonna be like, the people of China cannot at the same time have sex with a lady. I am the people of China, and the people of China are me. What are you talking about, sir? He doesn't do small talk. Oh, how you doing, Xi? Like, oh, really nice room. Talk about the missiles. Come on, can't we just talk about the art in the room for a second? Missiles. Talking about missiles.
Now, I know this is your first trip to China, but not your first go around with China.
Yeah. Well, look, their system is very disciplined. It's very focused. When you speak to them, they have an agenda. They go through that agenda. The president's style is quite different, but they seem to have a very good, at least interpersonal relationship, and that's important. Look, the differences between the countries remain, but the ability to manage it becomes not easy, but easier when the heads of state have a good working relationship, and they seem to.
Yeah, well, I think so too. What would you say, what is your read on President Xi? I mean, you read that their economy is struggling. You read that he's isolated.
isolated and economy is struggling. Said by Americans is, oh my God, this coverage is phenomenal.
Did you read both Putin and President Xi have a pretty high degree of paranoia? What is your read as you look at President Xi from a distance going into the meeting?
Yeah, I think my read has been what I think has been for a while, and that is China has a plan. I mean, they clearly view themselves, they believe they will be the world's most powerful country. They'll surpass the United States, and they have a plan to do it. And they're executing on that plan, and I don't blame them. If I were the Chinese government,
Rare moment of actual honesty. Rare moment of actual honesty, okay. Can't believe he's replying to Hannity with like, bro, like...
I'd have the same plan. We, on the other hand, don't view it that way, and we don't want to see anything. We're not trying to constrain China, but their rise cannot come at our expense.
Yeah, and China says that all the time, that it does not want it to come at anyone's expense. The situation is interesting here, Mr. Rubio. You guys' rise is almost always based on imperialist exploitation, okay? You're pirates, right? Your entire economy is built on being pirates. So when China helps certain countries or itself to develop to a state in which you can no longer pirate them, both directly through military intervention or indirectly through private sector intervention, you will see that as impeding against your particular national interest. That's the problem with imperialist states, with empire as a whole. They view you having sovereignty as contradictory to their interests. Because, like, let's be honest, it is. This administration has always been, to the rest of us from around the world, I think most people that are non-American can agree, relatively refreshing. MAGA administrations are relatively refreshing because when it comes to the reason you guys say you are doing the foreign policy that you do is because you say this is how we keep our position in the global hierarchy. Don't tell us you're bringing us democracies or whatever. You do for a little bit, oh, we're going to do regime change in Iran, and then it got boring in a week and you stop fucking saying it, right? It's kind of in your face. To go full like Marxist theory on your beautiful, cute little butts, national sovereignty is contradictory unipolarity, okay? And multipolarity is contradictory to maximum optimized imperial growth. If you want to be, this is this community's opinion, okay? This is our reading of what modern 21st century Marxists should be like when it comes to international politics. This community believes the unipolarity is a direct consequence and crutch of American imperialism, of imperialism as a whole. Lived experiences of post-Soviet world, okay, the post-Cold War world, have shown us, okay? This is not us picking favorites. This is not anti-Americanism. This is a strong dislike of unipolarity, no matter what state does it, unless it's hopefully, here it comes our subjectivity, a socialist state, right? I believe that is slightly contradictory because a socialist state puts the proletarian class first, not national interests first, and in the long term, it should care less about maintaining unipolarity with it on the top instead of the development of socialist projects all over the world. But in order for it to do that, it will have to be in parity at the very least with capitalist imperialism. Well, imperialism was always multipolar until 1945. It is 2026. Have you looked at the calendar recently, my friend? Looking at problems caused by multipolarity before the end of World War I, if I may fix you, we had multipolarity during the Cold War. Of a certain type, right? Of a certain type. True unipolarity we've had since the end of the Cold War. And that era that we lived through, most of us here at least, has shown us that we don't necessarily like. Because history didn't end. And the fact that we all became liberal capitalists did not all of a sudden lead to us being able to develop our own individual capitalist industries and develop economically and make GDP line go up, which meant greater prosperity for the rest of us. That didn't mean that now the big dogs weren't going to intervene. Okay, how many West Asian capitalist countries should I point at that were not allowed to develop on their own in their own sovereign way by the big liberal capitalist daddy, etc., etc., etc. Okay? Sovereignty does not exist in unipolarity unless you have a nuclear weapon or an economic nuclear weapon like the Strait of Hormuz. That it does not. If you're believer in national sovereignty, which is always something that comes before class revolution, okay? It comes as consciousness even in a particular project. Then you are against unipolarity. Socialism is impossible. Impossible. Global, like actual development of the working class project around the world is literally impossible in unipolarity. You're going to get eaten. It's one of the main reasons why the PRC chose the dangest path, because they literally said we can't compete with this behemoth that is willing to eat its own population in order to ensure economic growth so that it can buy bigger and better guns and eventually defeat it. So okay, market reform. We will use the tools of our enemy. And especially ultras come in and they're like, dude, what does fucking multipolarity have to do with socialism? I tell you everything. And I also tell you, shut the fuck up, American, with all due respect to my American friends, because the only socialist that does not talk about multipolarity is an American one, or one from a country deeply allied to the United States, whose interests, yes, very honestly, I'm not judging you, except if you're from Israel, then I'm judging you, tied to it. I understand why a South Korean or a Ukrainian or a Japanese person would support unipolarity, because you're in the friend group, okay? You're in the group chat. Okay, yeah, of course you will prefer a unipolarity in which you're the teacher's pet. Yes, our interests are not aligned. You are the labor aristocrat in South Korea. To me, you are. Unless, of course, you're a class traitor in South Korea and then ally with victims of the unipolar warlord. Sometimes it's much more complicated. Sometimes it's 10 times more complicated. Sometimes you're at a war with a regional power and you don't want unipolarity to end because it is in your mutual interests with the unipolar empire to get money from it in order to fight your enemy. Okay, that position makes sense. But we are working towards opposite goals. Welcome to materialism, motherfuckers. It's not all I am right, I am wrong. It is all interest and you fighting for yours. And the main pitch, us fucking commies have, is literally, there's more of us. So please start working for your own interest. Both as citizens of the developing world, both as anti-imperialists and victims of imperialism, but also as American labor aristocrats who, as true American patriots, should undermine American unipolarity as quickly as possible because it's coming. The only thing you can do to ensure the safety and privilege of your children or your friends' children, the coming generations in the United States, is to rid yourself of the stench of imperialism as fast as possible in order to limit the blowback of a century of imperialism that will, unfortunately, eventually, because that's how the world works, it fucking sucks, be felt by the working masses of your country as it is destabilized. You don't want the blowback to be fucking massive? I agree, the American people should not suffer it. But the American people have to help us the fuck out in order for us to make sure that we have a pitch to our governments one day that, hey, the Yanks are okay now. The Yanks are okay. There's no fucking need for this. When our government start getting some crazy fucking ideas. You understand? The Americans or whoever else, empire, has to be busy in order for its capital to be as far away as possible from reactionary anti-revolutionary forces during times of great strife where progressive forces are trying to co-opt these moments of crisis as proletarian revolution. That's my theoretical perspective. You're welcome to disagree.
Fall. So there's an area where we're just going to have a difference of opinion. But my view of them and of the government in China is they're very confident. They have a plan and they're trying to execute on that plan, which is fine. I understand that from a nation state perspective, but when that plan is in conflict with the national interest of the United States, we need to do what's right for the United States. And
that's always a meme with the United States, because all national projects of every country on planet Earth which pursues growth and sovereignty is in opposition to that of the United States of America, because motherfuckers just can't manage to mind their own business. The entirety of their economic model is not minding their own business. So you will always be in addition to American interests, and therefore empire will always de facto see your growth as a front to their growth, because it is. That's the meme. This is an honest imperialist, right? Because it is.
That'll come up on this trip, but more importantly, that'll be a feature of this relationship for a long time.
If you had, it's kind of hard. It's not a fair question to ask, but if you had a goal coming out of this summit, because this is a big deal, that you're going, that the president is going, the Secretary of Defense is on this plane, and so many others. And every top business leader in America is going on this trip. It's kind of crazy. If you had a goal, what you would like, you would say would be, how would you define a successful trip?
Well, I think it's already a success because we're going and we're going to be able to talk to them as opposed to at them. You know, one thing is to exchange phone calls and another thing is to put out messages and press releases and statements. But when the leaders are actually engaging personally, not just the president to president, but me with their foreign minister and Pete Hegseth with their defense minister and so forth, it creates channels of communication that can prove valuable in a time of potential conflict or where there might be heightened tension. So that's important. I also think, and we're not prepared to announce this yet, but there are a couple of unique areas of cooperation that we can work together on. The obvious ones are obviously fentanyl precursor production, which China, because their system can do this, can really crack down on that. And that would help lower fentanyl deaths in the United States. And there are a couple other areas of international relations where perhaps we intend to talk to them about discreetly. We're not going to announce it in the media, but areas that we both share some concern over.
I have a friend of mine, he's a great inventor, and the level of intellectual property theft not just impacted his entire...
Trust me, bro, I got like a friend who like really loves inventing stuff, bro. And in China, they steal the stuff. They don't definitely like private institutions for which you work and then invent something, never steal it from you in the States, though. Of course not. China be like, what the fuck is an intellectual property? I don't know her. Can I please has this?
The reason why they talked about enhancement of defense is because one big concern they have here in Taipei is that behind closed doors, Xi Jinping could ask President Trump to either delay or stall or flat out deny a $14 billion arms sales package that Taiwan's parliament has approved, but it has yet to be approved by President Trump in Washington. It's still in limbo. That would be a major setback for Taiwan if President Trump didn't approve that package quickly, because it would basically indicate that he's willing to negotiate Taiwan's security in exchange for some sort of grand bargain. That was, of course, the big...
Yeah, Taiwan, country number 755, surprised by the fact that the United States of America don't actually care about you or whatever they fucking promised you, but about whatever the current imperial goals they might have, and they are willing, nobody's surprised, to trade you like a fucking bargaining chip, which to them you always have been and you always will be. I love like places allied to the United States being like always being on edge, because hey, the Americans might sell us out at any moment. Any moment now, they're gonna sell us out. Which, you know, maybe you shouldn't ally yourself. Somebody thinking about being betrayed by 24/7. Just maybe.
With us now is Congressman Mark Alford, a Republican from Missouri. Congressman, always great to see you. Let me read you part of that statement from China again.
Oh my God! Let's get a hawk to be very hawkish, because he didn't get invited to the fucking trip.
Quote, if it is not handled properly, and this is, he's talking about the Taiwan issue here, if it is not handled properly, the two countries may clash or even come into conflict, pushing the entire China-U.S. relationship into a very dangerous situation. So some see that as a warning or a threat from President Xi. You care deeply about Taiwan. You have...
Of course he does, little cuck boy. Little bitch cuck boy! China's literally saying, like, don't keep giving money and weapons and motivation to Taiwan to scream independence, and we're gonna be pretty chill. That's the fucking message. The Chinese aren't saying, hey, we expect you to do nothing if we do a military intervention. Nobody would say that, because they know that the Americans would do something if they do a military intervention. What they're saying is, if you want our help with Iran, that is my vision at least, you want some help with Iran, stop continuously sending arms to Taiwan.
Been there, traveling there in the last couple of years. What do you think the clear U.S. statement on Taiwan should be?
Nuclear war if you touch this micronation.
The Taiwan issue is the most important issue in China-U.S. relations, and also saying if mishandled, the two nations will experience collision or even clashes, pushing the entire China-U.S. relationship into a highly dangerous situation. Do you see that as a threat from Iran?
Absolutely, Kate. That's a threat from Xi Jinping. And our challenge is that we have a distracted president and a distracted Secretary of Defense. I'm the senior Democrat on defense appropriations. And when we had Secretary Hegseth in front of...
I'm the ultimate appropriator. I love appropriating.
In the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians have just made a next strategic step, which is allowing Chinese supertankers full of oil to cross the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, 2,000...
Yeah, they started a war with them. The country that hasn't started an oil with them gets to move their goods through their ports. And you hear the shock, crowd goes wild. Comrade Internet.
Other ships, critical for fertilizer, for fuel, for gas, are still...
I'm gonna fertilize you with this dick. Bratan, bratushka. Kosta, brat, kosta. Opele.